short encouragement from my household to yours. And today, looking at Psalm 68. It was written by David, and in it is this line that gets used a lot in worship songs and in other things about God, that he is a father to the orphan and a defender of the widows. And a verse or so later, David writes that God puts the lonely in families, he sets the captives free. And as I've been reading through the Psalms and thinking through David's story, there's a lot of difficult circumstances that David faced. He was in wars and had so many battles. He was running for his life at times where he had to hide in deserts and in rock formations. He was in besieged cities. He was taken captive as a prisoner of war, more or less. He acted like he was crazy one time to make sure that he didn't get hurt. He had to run for his life from his family members. He had problems with his coworkers. His brothers made fun of him. Like, David has all of these situations, bad situations, things that weren't nice. But there are two things that David never faced being. David was not an orphan. We're told he's the son of Jesse, and at least in his earlier life, in the story of David and Goliath, Jesse is still around. So David didn't grow up as this orphan child who had no parent. And by virtue of being a man, David was never a widow. But even if he had been a widower, it would have been a different situation, because widowers, often just the men, were able to work and take care of themselves, but widows were especially vulnerable because if they didn't have kids and if they didn't have their husband, that made it harder for them to get work and get supplied for in that time frame. And David was neither of those. He wasn't an orphan, he wasn't a widow, and yet he still praises God for being those things. And when I look at myself, and what that means for me is that I shouldn't just praise God for who he is in my own life. I should praise God for that, but not just that. I should also praise God for who he is in the lives of other people, and especially the vulnerable. And to take that time to intercede, to pray for people who don't have my own life situation as well. So as we sit in this time frame of lockdown and corona and all the concerns we could have, think about who God is being also for others as well. And where you can, help into that. One of the things that David did to do that, at least, was there was a young man named Mephibosheth, who his father Jonathan had been a friend of David's. Jonathan dies, and it took a while, but David eventually finds out about Mephibosheth, finds this orphan, and invites Mephibosheth to come sit at his table, to be in his household, to be taken care of. And so David chooses to help an orphan as well. He has seen that that's God's character. And then David tries to live into that too. And so hopefully you'll do the same. Maybe that's not with an orphan or a widow. It could be with other things. But look at how God cares, protects others, how he's at work in their lives. And try to also take on that characteristic. Help God in what he's doing. And hopefully you'll be blessed in doing so, knowing that if he takes care of the birds and the flowers and widows and orphans, if he takes care of all of these different parts, even sometimes the bypassed parts of creation or the bypassed people in our communities, know that God will take care of them and God will take care of you too.